welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari says he's determined to end insurgency in Nigeria, calls it a task that must be done. Nigerian army dismisses and jails Brigadier General Ransome-Kuti for failing to perform military duties in Baga, Borno State. The former governor of Akwa Ibom, Godswill Akpabio, is quizzed by the EFCC for alleged fraud. And Turkey says no deal on the European Union action plan on migrant crisis. And on business news tonight, after emergency talks, the federal government delays plan to cut back gas supply to Ghana.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's Golden Eaglets begin the defense of their title against USA tomorrow in Chile.
The President, Muhammadu Buhari, has given conditions under which he will negotiate with Boko Haram terrorists. In an interview with an international network, Al Jazeera, he said unless there's evidence that the Chibok girls are alive, he will not go into negotiations with any group or persons fronting for the insurgents. The President renewed his pledge on the defeat of the insurgents, saying the armed forces will defeat Boko Haram by December this year. According to the President, as soon as the dry season comes, which is by the end of the year, Boko Haram will virtually be out of their main stronghold, and that'll be their Waterloo, end of quote. In the past few months, Boko Haram has wreaked havoc on residents of the northeast, particularly Borno State, leaving many dead. But the President says there's still hope as the army has been adequately mobilized to pursue the war against terror. But he says if Boko Haram is not defeated by December, he will not resign. He says he's determined to stay and fight it out. Now, the Nigerian army has wielded the big stick on one of its own, Brigadier General Enitan Ransome-Kuti, for failure to perform military duties. A court-martial has convicted, dismissed and jailed the officer over the loss of Baga in Borno State to Boko Haram insurgents early this year. Brigadier General Ransome-Kuti, son of renowned late activist Beko Ransome-Kuti, was arraigned before the military court sitting in Abuja in May, alongside other officers and men charged with cowardice and negligent performance of military duty under Section 62B of the Armed Forces Act. The court, however, dismissed the cowardice charge following a no-case submission by the defendant, saying the officer was right in withdrawing his troops in the face of superior firepower from Boko Haram terrorists. He was, however, sentenced to 6 months imprisonment for loss of equipment to the extremist sect and dismissed from service. Now, many of soldiers who faced the court-martial recently had their cases reviewed and pardoned by the military and thereafter reabsorbed into the Nigerian army. In the meantime, 7 people have died and scores of others injured after 3 female suicide bombers detonated devices at Umurari Bayanwaya town in Borno State, northeast Nigeria, around 5 a.m. today. The injured are receiving treatment at the specialist hospital in Maiduguri. Earlier, we spoke to our correspondent in Borno, Blessing Tuno, who said rescue agencies and security operatives are continuing to attend to the victims of the blast. Meanwhile, Blessing's camera, which was seized earlier by security operatives, has been returned.
We're talking about between 14 to 20. But this morning, the death toll of yesterday's bombing has increased to 30. And we have 32 people at the state specialist hospital and 7 at the teaching hospital. Now, from this morning's attack, 7 people have died, and then an unspecified number of others are in hospital receiving treatment. And what this has caused is, at the moment, there are more stop and checkpoints around the capital city. And there are also signs of military hostility this morning. We are ourselves victims. We went to film the scene of the incident, and we had our cameras seized and all of that. This is not the first time we are going to scenes of bombing to film what is happening. We don't know why the military are suddenly hostile today. There are no military formations around, and the military is around willing to speak with us. We are still trying to make sense out of why all of that has happened, and they're talking about security threats. We don't know what threats they are talking about, but at the moment our cameras are still with them, and they said that we need to be sure that what we have filmed will not constitute a threat before they release the cameras to us. We're with some of our colleagues, so I think they have about 3 cameras in their custody right now. The major challenge right now is the hospitals are overstretched. The last time we were at the specialist hospital, there wasn't enough space to accommodate the victims that were evacuated. We had some of them on the floor and all of that. And then another issue the rescue operators are dealing with is most times when such incidents happen, and then they rush to rescue. There's this fear of a second assailant to be knocking around somewhere. But for now, the major challenge we see right now is the issue of space in the hospital to accommodate victims of such attacks.
Our correspondent in Borno there, Blessing Tuna, but of course Blessing's camera, which was seized earlier by security operatives, we already know has been returned. Now, the death toll in the suicide bombing at the Mulai Mosque area of Maiduguri, Borno State has risen to 32. The bomb went off when worshippers were observing their prayers. One bomb exploded inside the mosque while another exploded outside the premises. Eyewitness accounts say that the suicide bombers targeted large crowds to cause maximum damage. On Wednesday, 3 blasts in Borno's capital, Maiduguri, killed at least 5 civilians and 3 suspected suicide bombers after the attackers were challenged by locals. On October the 1st, at least 10 people were killed and 39 injured when 4 suicide bombers blew themselves up in a wave of attacks near Maiduguri Airport and a military base. Well, despite the suicide bombings in Maiduguri, the Nigerian Army's new strategy has led to the arrest of 10 suspected Boko Haram members. They were apprehended in Birinwa, a border town in Jigawa State. The men, including 2 minors aged 14 and 15, were arrested by men of the Operation Salama of the Nigerian Army. According to the brigade commander, Brigadier General Hamisu Hassan, the men were fleeing from men of the armed forces and were attempting to cross into Yobe before they were rounded up. The army recovered a 33,000-litre tanker of petrol and 40 jerrycans filled with the same product. General Hassan has assured the public that the military will continue to track down terrorist suspects and that the December deadline to end Boko Haram is achievable. All right, let's discuss this security issue a little bit more now. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a security consultant, Professor Femi Adebulu. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you for having me again.
Well, you heard what the president said on that international network there, his resolve to fight Boko Haram, saying that he will stay on and fight. How do you break that down?
Well, actually, the call for him to resign if December deadline is not met, to me, is mischievous. He has started it in a very, very good way, and it's just logical for him to complete the job that he's doing. No, so far so good. I think his men are on top.
Looking at the nature of attacks in the last couple of days, there seems to be no defined front line. You find people strapping themselves and attacking in different locations. How exactly can they tackle this such that soft targets do not continue to be an issue with us?
Thank you very much. Actually, because there have been so much dealt with in the northeast, it is expected of them to scatter, to every other area where they are least expected, and that's how they operate. They operate where people don't really prepare for them. And the way it is now, like I've been saying before now, states that are joining the northeast, talking about Kaduna, Kano, even Abuja, and by extension, Lagos and its environment. So we should be very, very careful and prepare for eventuality, because these people will come and look at your vulnerability in order to strike. It's only they thrive on your vulnerability, and that is why the honor is on the army and all the guys that are in charge of routing them, to making sure that they know the strength and the weaknesses of the enemies they are fighting. They should also know that this is not a conventional warfare. You see, they cannot have any target where they go and meet these people except the popular Zambisa forest that we all know, having been routed from all those areas. So we should be able to monitor and know where they are going next. We should be able to know their thought at any particular time, know what they are planning, what they intend to do after they are routed from their safe haven. And that is where I think we are lacking a bit, because the subject targets right now do not have any fortification. I was somewhere in Abuja just last week in front of a mosque, a popular mosque. I saw a lot of vulnerability. I just nod my head. I said, look, we have not really learned so much from all the attacks.
How does the average worshipper or the average individual prepare for such a thing? How do you know when somebody is rigged with something that can detonate? I was listening to some other security experts saying, oh, you see it in the eyes. Would you be looking into the eyes of such a person?
No, actually it's difficult to look at their eyes. Even the terrorists themselves will not look you eyeball to eyeball. They want to evade your eye. They don't want to look at you face to face, because they know that you might question them, and they want to, as much as possible, avoid checkpoint. Anywhere they see any uniform person, they will avoid. But one other thing to look out for when you are searching for people like that, no matter the environment, no matter how hot the period is, they wear bulky dresses and all that, and they are always having a sense of urgency to go and carry out what they have, because we all know that what they carry is time bound, so they're always in a hurry. Even when you call them to check them, they will defy you. They have this aura around them that will not want to obey any authority. They are always very defiant.
All right, thank you so much, security consultant Professor Femi Adewale, for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for having me.
In part 2, after the break, UNICEF report says poor sanitation kills 800 children daily here in Nigeria. That's in a moment. To join us again.